Alrighty, so good morning and welcome to group energy healing for stress, trauma, PTSD, and complex PTSD. Let's go ahead and start with reading the group goal. And I haven't gotten any suggestions to update this, so I am going to... good morning to you, Lisa. And I am looking at my my texts. I will just have that on buzz. So where was I? So I'm just going to go ahead and read what I had going. So I allow my body and my conscious mind to learn from and let go of old stress and trauma. I am allowed to feel calm. It is safe for me to feel calm and peaceful in my body. I sleep deeply through the night, knowing everything always turns out marvelously well. My relationships are easy and peaceful. I stay calm throughout my day, even when provoked. My higher power supports me fully in this. I deeply love all of my inner children who are stressed and traumatized and who keep me from feeling calm and peaceful. I invite them home to my heart. So, because this is a basic class, I am going to have to explain this every single time, so apologies for my veterans here. But by creating a goal, we are activating any inner children who are resisting this goal. Because if in fact this goal were allowed to our conscious and unconscious minds and subconscious minds, it would be already existing for us. So the fact that we don't feel calm or perhaps don't sleep well in the night, that maybe our relationships are discordant or can't stay calm when provoked, and all of that is because we are separated by trauma from parts of ourselves called the inner child. And each individual experience where it happened to us is called an inner child. So you can think of them as inner children. So if we had had complete experience as a child where we had been attuned to by a parent, then they would have supported us through the emotional event that happened, and we would be able to, it would be safe. We would feel emotionally regulated. We would be allowed to continue to be who we were at the time that we were traumatized. But when people don't understand this and maybe sometimes even seem to blame us when we're children for having the reaction that we did, then a part of us has to be put away for safekeeping with the emotional lesson that didn't get learned. And that part is this inner child. And it's always activated by an event that feels similar. So that's why we feel triggered sometimes by people acting in a certain way. Somebody else might have a very different reaction to them because they've had different types of programming from their traumas in childhood. Somebody might laugh and shrug something off that another person will want to have a fight over. And that's what we bring to the table. That's our work. They're showing us a part of us that we can't love. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to ground fear, paralysis, and shock. And so for this, imagine that I am standing at your feet. Maybe you're laying on a bed or a massage table, and I'm just holding the energy points and allowing energy to discharge. You can help the process by imagining that you have a golden grounding cord that's going down to the center of the earth, and that any old chi that's no longer serving you can be discharged, and that there's a pool of energy that's been purified that you can draw from and come back up the backside of your grounding cord to your tailbone, so that you are replenished in this way. And I'm just waiting for the field to even out. Very good. You might have noticed that you feel a sense of wanting to take a deep breath and sigh it out. That's the energy that shifts as it comes into balance. And you might notice that you're feeling like you're taking a step back from whatever stress or edginess that you came into the session with here. Very good. And the next thing we're going to do is, and you can help me with this if you want, by putting your left hand about an inch above your eyebrows and this hand. And so you put your index and middle fingers together to create a neutral, because only the thumb is neutral otherwise. So the thumb is fine by itself, but we do want that kind of neutral provided by the two fingers together. So I'm doing it on my forehead as well, which you can see there. So I'm holding that for you, and you don't have to hold it if you don't feel like it. But again, you can just visualize that I'm either standing at that massage table, if that would be a comfort to you, or at this point, I don't need to do it in a session. So I typically am sitting in a chair and somebody else, a client, is sitting in a chair. So you can visualize that if that's more comforting. I know some people don't like to be touched, and other people find it very soothing. So whatever works for you. And again, I'm just waiting for that group field to clear. Actually, I'm waiting for it to start up. Sometimes when we've had a stressful week, it can just really be almost like the pulse is absent. That energetic pulse can just be kind of harried. So let's just send ourselves love for the week that we've gone through. It's been a really, really hard one on the planet this week. Innocent people on both sides of a disagreement are getting hurt, and we feel that. It's also very shocking. I was just speaking to somebody about this today. It's very shocking when people drop into the full force of the brainstem, that kill or be killed mentality, and act from that. And for those of us who have done so much work to be in a better place, to be looking to work with people for mutual benefit, it's shocking to see that we're drawn into it energetically, because we are all one. We're all connected. We are one big electrical circuit. Every human on this planet is a part of that circuit. So sending that love. There it goes. There it goes. Okay, good. Take a deep breath in and let that go. Alrighty, so the next thing we're going to do is the Bun meditation. The indigenous practice in Tibet before Buddhism came. So they were already pretty darned advanced before Buddhism came along and gave them some additional tools for mind-body connection. So again, for those of you who haven't done it yet, we're going to imagine this orange line, which is a bit like an opened up staple. And we're going to imagine it coming up and around the body as we take a breath in. They call it skull polishing. And imagine that this was actually in front of the spinal column, about an inch. And as we take a breath, we bring it down to the bottom of the body in this position, about 3 finger widths below the belly button. And from here, we energetically, while holding the breath, send it first up to the crown chakra and hold it as long as is comfortable. It's developing a type of anaerobic breath, and it provides a whole different way of supporting your body and mind, and it helps to calm you. So once you've held it as long as it's comfortable, you don't want to feel your heart racing, you don't want to feel, you don't want to see stars. You release it with the imagining like a purple smoke coming from the top of your head, from that crown chakra. And we're going to repeat that for each of these chakras. We're not going to do the second chakra. We're going to skip to the first chakra. When we do when it is done as a practice, a physical practice, the second chakra is included, but not unless it's a physical practice. And we're also skipping the sixth chakra. So we go from crown to throat. Anything else I should mention? I think we're good. Everybody's going to have a different amount of time that's appropriate for them. You will notice the more that you do this, that the more you can hold your breath. Basically, there's a benefit to us to be able to have the body have the ability to continue to process energy and movement and all that kind of stuff without needing to have it done on oxygen. We have a capacity to do it without oxygen directly in incoming oxygen, and it develops our strength and resilience, actually. And I'm just going to briefly say before we go into it, I first heard about this from somebody who became an Ayurvedic doctor named Dr. John Dwyer, and he was talking about going to being a triathlete and going to India and learning how to become a doctor of Ayurvedic medicine. And as an triathlete, he was walking up hills with these elderly gentlemen, maybe in their 70s or something like that, these Ayurvedic folks, and they would get up to the top and they would be not breathing hard, not panting like he was. And he was completely floored by what was going on and realized that this was a whole other type of capacity that he was unaware of. And while his fitness was very good and incredible as a triathlete, that there was a whole other side of the body that he was not aware of, that he could improve his fitness even more and stress his body out less. It actually is a stress to always be breathing and not develop this capacity of movement without breathing. Just as in the same way that there's children have a more complete ability with the muscles in their body, they run until they're exhausted. That develops the fast twitch fibers. And along the way, it's developing the slow twitch as well. So there's fast twitch, slow twitch, and super fast twitch. And children have all three of them from all the different types of activities they're doing. But as adults, we pace ourselves. And so we're not taking advantage of the fact that we have fast twitch and super fast twitch muscles. And that is 55%, I believe, of our metabolic rate that we're just giving up. So it's the same thing with anaerobic capacity of breath. So without any further ado, sorry for the lecture, take a deep breath in, bring it down to 3 finger widths below the belly button. And then energetically, while you're holding your breath, send the energy to your crown chakra. And when you're ready, let it go in purple smoke above your head. Now we're just going to do one time for each chakra. But in the real practice, what we do is 3 times per chakra. So if you ever feel like you're incomplete and you want to have a little bit more, go ahead and drop in and do it again. I found that when I first started this, I could only do once per, I could only do it in the presence of people. I felt I needed the support of the group. So if you're ready, take another deep breath in, this time sending breath and energy down to 3 finger widths below the belly button. And when you're ready, sending that energy here and holding the breath still, of course. And as you're ready, you can exhale 360 degrees around the neck. And that will, as a blue smoke, disperse that energy. And you can just breathe normally in between. And when you're ready, you can take another deep breath in, bringing it down to 3 finger widths below the belly button, and then still holding the breath, send that energy to your heart chakra. And visualizing that beautiful green energy there. And when you're ready, you can let that go as a green smoke in a circle 360 degrees around you. And now it's time for the 3rd chakra. There we go. Solar plexus chakra. Taking a deep breath in, bringing that energy down to 3 finger widths below the belly button, and then while holding the breath, send that energy to that spot of yellow at the solar plexus chakra. And then whenever you need to release, 360 degrees around you, yellow smoke. Alrighty, and now our last one is going to be different because we'll be directing the energy downwards. So when we release, so I'm just giving you a little advance warning. Taking a deep breath in, bringing that down energetically to 3 finger widths below the belly button. And now this time the energy is held at the base of the 1st chakra. And then whenever you're ready, that breath will power downwards towards Mother Earth. Very good. So hopefully you're noticing the calm that this type of breathing can help you with. And what I've found is that it's just a relief for people with ADHD as well. It's the only thing that quiets the troop of monkeys in my mind. Alrighty, and now a little bit of education. Sorry, I've already had a lot of education this morning, but for those of us who haven't experienced this before, the subconscious is a hero that tries to save our lives. But it's using old rules learned before the age of 18 with priority to rules learned before the age of 7 when the conscious mind began developing. We have something called an upper limit problem, which was a term coined by Dr. Gay Hendricks, who's a psychologist. There's a zone of what's allowed. And if we exceed it, then we're causing stress to the subconscious. It only knows how to survive at a certain level. And if we go too far below it, it stresses the subconscious out and it's trying to get us to do better. Unless we've had a lot of trauma, in which case it thinks that we deserve nothing. And so having any success stresses it out so much that I think that that's partly why we have our homeless population and people who are drug and alcohol addicts, because in some way they feel undeserving. Something isn't working right with their self-talk. We need to have positive self-talk. We need to give our subconscious a positive destination. We worry the subconscious when we don't give it a destination. It's like a small child. So it's important to remember to always tell yourself everything always turns out marvelously well, even if you know as a traumatized person that historically speaking, whatever huge percentage of the time things really don't go well. If you don't tell yourself that it's possible for things to go well for your subconscious to hear, your subconscious hears it as an instruction to keep the door shut. So that's how that works. So if we give our subconscious what it wants, it is wired to learn feelings. And our impulse, both as the brainstem level of the brain and the conscious mind level of the brain, we know we have to hide it, because if other people can see our reaction, or even a lot of people are empathic, they can feel our reaction, we know from past history that we'll get in trouble. So we suppress our feelings as much as we can. It means that the body can't learn them. And the body and the subconscious together is what I'm talking about when I say the body sometimes instead of the subconscious. Body is a much shorter word. So when we give it what it wants, it will allow us to have our goals, the conscious mind goals. And we know that if we continue the stress that we experience as a child, that it will wear the body out. So when we pair together as a team, we can have cooperation and just have a much better quality of life, because what ends up happening is it's like we're driving a car and we think that we're driving the car of life, right? And we think, oh, we're the driver, right? But no, really, there's it's like one of those driving school cars with the two wheels and the two steering wheels, and but the only difference is that we have a disadvantage as the conscious mind because we sleep. So a lot of times people will be worried and afraid at the concept that there's somebody else that's trying to fight for control of the car. But really, no, what I say is feel grateful that you're aware of it, that you become aware of it, because it's always happening. And now we have tools to be able to cooperate as partners. It's just a game changer to be able to cooperate as partners. So without further ado, let's start the emotional clearing. So I'm just going to do some testing. So we have an ancestral emotion. Let's go ahead and figure out what that is. Again, always having to say yes. So we have a new layer of that. So go ahead and feel into your bodies and notice any sensations, anything that's there from head to toe. Give your body permission. It can be afraid of us because we often think mean thoughts about it, whether we don't like the message it's sending about pain or discomfort or fear or anger or whatever. We can get so upset at it. And it's really, in so many ways, just like a small child. We're like the scolding parent without meaning to be. And then I'm just feeling for the pulses to even out. And take a deep breath in and let that go. Great. Okay, so we have a hidden layer. And more feelings. Another ancestral emotion. So let's see what that is. Incredulous. So again, these goals activate inner children that are afraid that we're not going to learn the emotional lessons that we're here to learn. Helpful if you believe, but you don't have to believe. You could have not be comfortable with the idea of past lives, but still realize that we're here for a reason. And I think that reason is to learn feelings as the biggest opportunity for soul growth. So tuning in to the sensation from head to toe, sending it love if it's painful for you, however much you can tolerate. It might be a drop. And even a drop is allowing a lesson in for your body that it desperately needs and requires for you to have some success. So as you are experiencing this, when you think of being incredulous, not believing that something could have happened, oftentimes it's a negative thing, right? Like, how could that horrible thing have possibly happened to me again? So it's clearing that. It's letting the body learn it in order to be fully understood, giving it an education, because it otherwise never gets educated a day in its life formally. And then letting it go, letting the molecules of emotion break down into their byproducts and letting the liver process it and the body let it go. Otherwise, they hold on to these molecules, and inflammation is the end result of a lot of neurochemicals. And as we know, inflammation is not healthy for us. It can lead to disease. And I'm just feeling those pulses start to come into alignment. So take a deep breath in and let that go. And also, incredulity can happen when we don't believe the good things that happen to us as well. And so, for those of us who don't believe that we're worthy or deserve and all that kind of stuff, if we don't learn the feeling beforehand, then it can also, I think, limit that level, of it's keeping that level low, and it's like automatically reinforcing, oh no, there's a limit here. But if we learn incredulity, that feeling in our body, then being in our zone of genius, that upper level that Gay Hendricks talks about, which is where we want to be, rather than in even in excellence, we're not really following our soul path. So we can be in that level of the zone of genius, and we don't have to be incredulous. And have it go down, have the subconscious be like, oh no. So we can have that good fortune smiling on us. So let's see if there's another feeling, and that is victimhood again. I got to tell you, it comes up a lot that I remember a number. Somebody else's feeling. Sometimes we hold that for our family members as a survival tactic, but we never do anybody any favors when we do that. They're here to learn emotionally too. We're enabling them and preventing them from going deeper and connecting more with their higher power. And for learning the soul lessons they're here for. Yeah, if I had to say, if there's like one like the most difficult emotion to get past, it's victimhood, because victimhood is, while we rail against it, we don't like it, we complain about it and all that kind of stuff, but it's also protective, because when we know that it's useless to try, then we don't have to try. But we're here to come into our personal power and to realize that victimhood is basically where humanity has been for a very long time, and we don't have to be victims anymore. And I mean that in the sense that, like, one might say, women tend to be victims more than men in our culture, but everybody has been stuck in this pattern that's been created, this patriarchy that people talk about, and it's made a lot of people miserable. A lot of men having to shove down any kind of connection to their feelings so that they can do what it takes to be considered a man in this culture, and therefore they are victims of that overarching system. And so, for any of you men watching out there in the future, just know that we're with you and we're working together. Yeah, to have to separate from our emotions is taking away our power. Someone once told me that on the other side of feelings, of emotions, is where power lies, and I believe it very much to be true. Alrighty, so take a deep breath in and let that go. And that's it for that. And I'm just resetting the chakras. So right above the third eye, before you get to the crown chakra, I'm asking for universal energy to come in and reset that. Some people will see colors when I do this. Other people will feel energy, and a lot of other people will feel nothing, but it's still doing its thing. Okay, very good. And now we're going to integrate inner children. We've got 5,000 inner children to integrate today from birth to the present day. And just imagine, close your eyes and imagine that you can see these little ones in a beautiful, safe place with the older ones taking care of the younger ones. And that you can walk up to them and say hello, either out loud or in your head. Tell them, I'm so sorry, I didn't know you were here all alone. I came as soon as I heard. I'm you, all grown up. We've survived and we've thrived. Your home is in my heart. Come home to my heart. And show them pictures of you between the ages of birth to the present day, maybe 4 to 6, something like that, up to you. And when you get to the present day, ask them if they're willing to come home to your heart. If they say yes, then we can go ahead and proceed. And if they say no, you'll need to have a discussion with them after we have this session end on your own. And ask them, typically, if what will work is to ask them if they are your higher power, because your higher power knows that it's easier to take care of them if they're home in your heart, because that's where the home of all integrated emotional experience is encoded in the neurons of our heart. So now for those of us who are ready to proceed, go ahead and tell them to shrink down. They can become points of light or anything that you wish that's soothing and comforting, and imagine them heading home to your heart. You may have a sense of shimmering or vibration in the body as this happens. This is your fascial train activating to allow these little ones to start to move, head back to your heart. And as that happens, you can just imagine yourself welcoming them into your heart in your own way of that you like to imagine protecting these little ones, because they are these younger, small versions of you, younger versions of you that now get to be safe. Okay, so now I want you to take a deep breath in, and as you breathe out, send a buttery yellow light of self-compassion to every cell in your body. And when you're ready, take another deep breath in, and as you breathe out, send love and gratitude to every layer of you that cooperated here today. So for those of you who don't feel complete from this process, I'll be posting the video later and you can replay it and pause it where you need to have more time for this exercise. So the next thing we're going to do is end with gratitude, and that is actually I'm going to do one more thing. Clear negative energies. I don't know why this isn't on my sheet, but I'm just going to be quiet for a moment while I do that. Alrighty. So the last thing I'm going to say is about gratitude, and that is to just compare how you were feeling at the start of this program to how you feel now, and be sure to just connect in with the gratitude for that. Finding time throughout the day for little moments of gratitude for what we have reinforces the gifts that keep coming. So with that, that completes the session, and I don't know if anybody wants to turn on video or a microphone, but whatever you would like to do. If you want to share your experience, I'd love it. I'm sure other people who are watching the videos later would love it as well. Maybe I put everybody to sleep.
I don't know why it took me a while to be able to do that. It's like the computer went to sleep.
Ah, gotcha.
That was wonderful.
Do you want to stop recording before we?
I was just going to put a little bit on the recording, and then we can have like a further thing after the recording, but just like general something of, did this help you? Would be good.
Oh, I get it. Okay, yes, no, it was amazing. I feel so relaxed now.
Oh, good. Yeah. And you,
Starting with the
Lisa?
breathing.
And sorry,
That's
I didn't hear that last part, Joan.
Oh, I did just starting with the breathing, like that started it, and then to just release the like again another layer of never being allowed to say no and always having to say yes. It was
Yeah.
yeah, I was just going to say that coming in, I was feeling really sort of harried and like and now I just feel like ooh, there's a calmness that's really beautiful.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'll stop the recording now so that we can share